Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Zoom into Wine. It's time for the show and your host, Ian Blackburn.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you. Running a little bit behind there. Hope you're doing well, and welcome to Zoom into Wine. My name is Ian Blackburn. I am the host of Zoom into Wine. I teach wine classes at learnaboutwine.com, and I'm the wine buyer for merchantofwine.com, but you can always find out about our Zooms at zoomintowine.com. And tonight we have a very special guest, my friend Bob Blumer, who, how you doing there, Bob? Doing okay, buddy? You all set up? You want me to give you a minute? Let me unmute you. Let me see. There you go. I think you're there.
There we go. Hey, Ian, I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how to flip the camera so that Kate can actually shoot this and sort of zoom in and out? Or is it possible?
Flip the camera on your side?
Yeah. Can you do that on Zoom? I'm not sure if you can or not.
I honestly don't know. Yeah, it worked.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actually flipping the camera so that we can shoot. All right, don't worry about it.
Yeah, if you go that way, it works.
We'll lock it down. That's actually not what I was referring to, but don't worry about it.
Are you seeing yourself as the feature there? Because I've spotlighted you.
Yes, I am.
All right, you're spotlighted. Well, let me introduce you to my friend Bob Blumer. Bob is a really great guy to know here in Los Angeles, anywhere in the food world. Some of you may have already received his cookbook, Flavor Bomb, and we're gonna do a little risotto tonight. Bob lives up in the Hollywood Hills, but he's from Canada and has been on the Food Network for a long time, known as a Surreal Gourmet, and does quite a bit of really amazing food activities, a lot of television, and of course the cookbooks. And when this pandemic's over, I can't wait to touch classes with Bob. And I hope you're ready to go. Are you ready to rock?
Actually, Ian, why don't you do a little introduction to the wines? I just have a couple more minutes and I just want to get myself settled and focused here.
You got it. Well, we're going to do a little thing tonight on the Chardonnays, and I will spotlight myself for a minute, Bob, and take off the background here so we can talk about those wines.
Great.
All right. So the idea of tonight is that we've been traveling all over the wine spectrum and tasting different wines from different places, different grape varieties. But Chardonnay is a really important wine, and it is, I think, kind of hitting a rougher patch these days. There's just so many options. There was a movement many years ago that people referred to as ABC, anything but Chardonnay. But it is, I think, the time that Chardonnays kind of realized that they've got to clean up their act a little bit and make a little more polished product. And I think the growers have kind of diversified in the way that they make the wine. There are some that are still very oaky buttery and they've got their customers, and then there's some others. And tonight we're going to kind of go through across the spectrum of Chardonnays. I think I was initially going to do this blind, but I'd rather let you know which one is which and taste across them and be able to talk about them at quality levels so that you can taste and feel these different price points. We've got one that starts at around between $30 and $40, and then we've got a Chardonnay that's between $50 and $60, and then we hit a Chardonnay that sells for north of $100. And so really what I want to do is kind of just talk through them one at a time, observe them, discuss them, how they're made, give you a little bit of background about them, but also kind of lean into Bob's conversation with our food and all things that are happening in the world of Bob Blumer. And you got some leaks there, Bob?
I do. I have Well, I have all the ingredients here for a spring risotto. And there's actually a really interesting story behind this risotto. It was originally published in the New York Times. This is the basis of it. I mean, I'm sort of using that as my departure point, but it's a recipe that was created by Lydia Bastianich back in the 90s when Pope Benedict came to the United States, and she was tasked with being in charge of all of his meals for the entire trip. And for one particular meal, she cooked it herself, and it was the spring, and so she decided to make him spring risotto, and it took advantage of all the spring vegetables, fava beans, peas, all the young tender greens, and then she went one step beyond a traditional risotto, and that's the reason I'm making this tonight, because most people who like to cook are familiar with risotto and have made it before. Can we see a show of hands? Ian, I don't even know if I can see your audience here, but can you see your audience?
I can see the audience now. I did get a couple of requests for the recipe. Lindsay, did you make the risotto tonight?
I didn't make it, but I bought all the ingredients. I wasn't sure if we were going to be making it alongside or if it's something we'll do on our own. So I'm open.
Yeah, okay. Well, you can follow along, or you can watch and then make it from the recipe, as you wish. My second question, Ian, for your audience is, how many people have made risotto before? At least once in their life. Can you give me a straw poll there?
Yeah, we're about 90%.
Great. Okay, cool. 90% have made risotto once or twice.
I gotta confess though, mine was pretty terrible. It's
okay.
You need to know a little. You gotta have a little risotto wisdom, what not to do. And
okay, great. There are several steps, because risotto is easy to make, and even when it's not perfect, it's pretty delicious. But there are a few steps that I'll walk you through when we make this. And what we're going to do, Ian and I discussed this before. I'm going to start it, then I'm going to turn it over to Ian, who's going to lead you through some of your wines, and then we're going to come back, because as you know, risotto takes about a half an hour, and there's some stirring and whatnot. So instead of boring you or doing swap outs, we're going to cook this in real time, but I'm going to toss it back to Ian. So I'm going to, little spoiler alert. What really distinguishes this risotto, in addition to some of the tips that I'll give you along the way, is that Lydia Bastianich, when she was making this for the Pope, because it was a spring, she got her mitts on some ramps. So ramps are they're actually wild baby leeks. And they find them, they're found all over the Northeast in the springtime. And so she made essentially like a ramp pesto, although it didn't have any cheese in it. It was ramps and olive oil and some salt. And she folded that into the pesto at the last minute. And it gave it a whole second layer of flavor. Because I find personally that when you make pesto, when you eat when you make risotto, it's delicious for the first few bites, and then it becomes the same after a while. And so this added a whole different layer of flavor to it and dimension. And for me, it was the best risotto I've ever tasted. So I'm going to show you this, and that we're going to do at the very end. So, sorry?
I said very good, and I'm just showing the recipe real quick, Bob, because I did email it to everybody that's on the Zoom. It is on the page, but a little hard to blow up on that page. I'm not sure why we couldn't get that to work, but the recipe is here now on the Zoom, and I will send it to anybody that needs it. But if you're a participant on this Zoom or watching it on Facebook, I'm going to put the link to this on Facebook as well.
All right. I would suggest the easiest way to do this is sort of follow along with me. Just watch right now. Okay. And then you'll have the recipe, and everything that I talk about will resonate with you as you are, or will be with you when you finally decide to make it. And you've got the recipe, and you'll have my words echoing in your mind. And I just want to say, this is live is a live Zoom, and anything can happen. And I was doing a Zoom before Christmas, a cooking demo, and I was doing exactly this. I was slicing and dicing while I was talking to my phone camera, and I sliced off the end of my thumb. It was like a Monty Python sketch where the blood was, and I ended up I took a dish towel, I wrapped it like a tourniquet around my thumb, put my hand behind my back, and proceeded for the rest of the half an hour to cook with one hand. But hopefully that won't happen tonight, although I can't make any promises. All right, so we're going to start this risotto in the traditional way, and that is I'm going to start with a little bit of olive oil in my pan, and I'm going to add a couple of cloves of garlic that I've minced up, and shallot. And just stir these around. It's cooking quickly because the pan was preheated.
And everybody get the latest update on Zoom because they allow you to smell this now.
Oh, yeah. Zoom 5.0, right? I'm taking a cup of risotto rice, arborio rice, and stirring it. And you want to stir it for about a minute. Now, I have some Italian friends who are closer to the risotto gods than I am. And they tell me that there's a certain point at which the arborio rice speaks to you, and it sort of it emits a certain kind of hiss, and that's when you know that you have stirred it around long enough. But you want to stir it for about a minute, and if you're not, that close to the rice gods, you just keep stirring until you've toasted the rice a little bit, and it's nice and evenly coated with the oil. And once we've done that, we're going to stir in a big, generous splash of wine. Now, I neglected to open this bottle, but I will do so right now. So you want a dry white wine, but truthfully, any wine you have, you're not going to sacrifice your fancy wines from tonight, but any wine you've had, even if it's been in the refrigerator for a few days or a week. So I'm adding about a quarter to a half of a cup. I'm actually just making 2 servings here. And I'm going to stir it until the rice absorbs the wine. And on my other burner, I have some chicken stock.
Got it.
And I've warmed this up because it's always good to ladle in warm stock. And if you make your own chicken stock, this is a great use for it. The better the stock, the more flavorful the risotto. But the truth is, and I always like to share my own personal experiences, and I like to take the high road and use the best ingredients when I can. But mostly I make my chicken stock from leftover rotisserie chicken bones that I get at the farmer's market, and the stall hasn't been there, so I happen to make my own chicken stock. So I'm using store-bought stock from your traditional box of stock. You just want to use the best stock that you can that's available to you at the time. But believe me, there's so much that's going to be going on in this risotto, especially with this beautiful green sauce that we're going to make at the end, that there's so many flavors going on. You're not going to notice the stock as much as if you were just making a super simple risotto. So I'm going to do one more thing right now, and that is ladle in my first cup, or my first ladle full. So that's about a half a cup of stock. And then I'm going to throw it back to Ian. So the rice very quickly absorbed the wine, and now I'm adding my first ladle full of stock, and I'm going to continue to add stock as the rice absorbs it all, and as I keep stirring. But truthfully, you don't. It's a myth that you need to stir your risotto constantly. Just keep an eye on it. Stir a bit, have a sip of wine, stir, a sip of wine, and like that. So Ian, I'm going to throw it back to you for about, I would say 10 to 12 minutes.
Okay.
And then, and I'm going to follow along as we do this tasting. And if you want to talk to me as we go about anything, I'll join in.
Sure. You got it. Let's drink some wine together. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I just want to now kind of pan back out and say hi to everyone that's participating. I want to thank Lisa Test, and I see your mom's joining you tonight. Fantastic. Good to see her.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the Chardonnay.
Cool. Are you guys in Santa Monica, or are you up north?
No, we're up north in Woodside.
All right. Well, pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Test.
Love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
She's got some wine. She's been picking out on that. I ended up bringing up a case, and she's picking out wine that she likes. So there's going to be some wine coming here.
All right. Fantastic. Great. We need some outlets for all that wine there, Lisa. And I want to thank you again for all your generous support of the charity, because they've got some wonderful stuff from the charity from our last charity tasting. How are the Burts doing? I think you're up in Northern California too. We could have got you and the Tests together. I think you're pretty close to each other. Yeah.
We're in LA. We're like right by Cal State LA, but my mom is from San Luis Obispo. That's Chris Papatone. David and I are here in LA.
Okay, now I get it. How are you, Chris?
I was going to say, we're cooking along with you.
All right.
And Rachel and her husband are here. Hi. And we're in San Luis Obispo and not too far from you. So we're enjoying.
Fantastic. Wow.
Rachel's learning how to make risotto. It's her first time.
All right. All right. That's cool. Bart, you don't look like you're making risotto.
Yes. Hello there, Ian.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Thank you. Hope you've been well, too.
Yeah, I haven't seen you in a little while. I was wondering, are you doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Lots of stuff going on. My son got into the college he wanted to get into, so that's the big news. And all 3 glasses of wine tonight are going for him. He's going to go to Boston University, so we're very proud of him.
Oh wow, how fantastic! That's huge, man. Well, let's celebrate that. And
I'll see you next Saturday night too.
All right, for our Rhone Warriors.
That is right.
I got to tell you that, I've said this in recent Zooms. Sometimes we put some Zooms together. We don't know how popular they're going to be. And sometimes Rhone events are a little bit of a challenging sell. This is going to be the biggest event we've ever done. So wow. It's going to be a big one. Yeah, we actually went back to the wineries and got a little bit more wine because we sold out. So we're really happy with that.
But see, it's events like this tonight that have me so grateful to you, because I've always wanted to try a Kongsgaard Chardonnay. I've heard about them for years. And here, this is a perfect way to do it. So I just got to thank you, because it's ideal and it's fun, and it's fun to hear what people have to say and watching Chef Bob do his work. And that's great.
Well, thanks, man.
Hey, Bob, I have your book. It's good.
All right. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll take that endorsement.
Teresa, how you doing? Oh, you just muted yourself. Actually. There you go.
I'm good.
All right. You got your wines? You ready to go?
I did. And if I didn't buy all the ingredients, I got the book. I would have made my Brussels sprouts with this Brussels sprouts recipe, but next time.
Okay. Well, let's drink a little bit of wine right now and let the chefs do their chefing, and you can just kind of taste along there as you're cooking. But let's talk about Chardonnay. Obviously, it's the name of the grape. We're drinking California Chard tonight. I think most California Chardonnay producers for many years were under the influence of the kind of the magical wines of Burgundy. But we've really become very adept in making our California Chardonnays what they are, and there are some really special wines in the state of California, and we have some very special places that they come from. I love Chardonnays from Santa Barbara. I've got a couple of those on the website that I really love. I love Chardonnays from Northern California, up in obviously the Russian River, Sonoma Coast. Those are some of my favorite areas. So this tonight, we're kind of focusing on better efforts in California, but being able to taste the difference between, a lot of people don't understand, why is a wine $30? Why is a wine $60? And why is a wine $100? And sometimes there is a little bit of a reputation thing going on. Certainly you need a reputation to be able to sell a bottle of Chardonnay at $100 a bottle. And so the gentleman who we have representing Kongsgaard tonight is absolutely the top pinnacle name in Chardonnay production in the state of California. And he's got a resume to stand behind it. And quite honestly, his wine sells out almost immediately. Everyone gets a small allocation like myself. I've got about 12 bottles. And so we just decide how we're going to use it. And Barnett, I'm happy to be able to taste it with you too, because I only got 12 bottles. And this is a way I get to try it as well. So you get to buy it without even tasting it, because it's that allocated and that hard to get. But Chardonnay is basically made in a couple of different ways. And when people start talking about Chardonnay, they might talk about it being like Chablis, which is very crispy and tends to be kind of on the super dry, super crisp, a little bit more under the influence of minerality. But that's really only achieved in a couple of great places in the world. And Chablis being the primary one. But I also know of a couple of other places, like down in New Zealand. There's some really amazing Chardonnays that are growing down there, very similar to Chablis. I have tasted some really fantastic Chardonnays from Australia, from South Africa, that also kind of check those boxes. But in Burgundy, there's a very famous vineyard called Montrachet. And that is what really kind of influences the style that was brought to California. We put it in a wood barrel. We give it a lot of time in the wood barrel during fermentation, during malolactic fermentation, and really started to coax this added richness, butter, cream, and really through a little bit of confidence, a little bit of trial and error, we can really start to see the California style evolve. And it went from being kind of a imitation of French Burgundy to now I think California has its own true path, its own true style. And when we compare it to Burgundy, of course, Burgundy is going to have so much more acidity and structure that maybe they need 5 or 10 years to be able to enjoy. Our California wines, we can pop these open now and they can be very voluptuous and rich and round and enjoyable. And I think that's where we're at right now. So let's taste wine number 1 and talk about Ed Sobraja. And I'm going to show you a little PowerPoint that I made to kind of guide us through this tasting. Well, first of all, there's Bob and the book Flavor Bomb and the recipe again. And by the way, I do send out a copy of this PowerPoint at the end of this show, so you don't have to take any notes or anything like that. But
it is Saturday night.
Yeah, well,
no note taking.
Everyone likes to take notes on Saturday night, right? So what we're going to really focus on today are wines from Sonoma County, and we're going to take a look. And here's Dry Creek Road, goes out way out here, and Sobraja is kind of way out here on Dry Creek Road. It's going to be our number 1, and we're going to taste some wines from the Russian River and a little bit of a Sonoma coastal Russian River thing with Kongsgaard. So here we go. So here's our 2017 Sobraja, and Sobraja is the winemaker. He's also the owner of the ranch. This is his home ranch, about 13 acres that he planted in 1995. 100% Chardonnay, most Chardonnays are. This wine spent a good 6 months in new and French oak barrels, and does go under both primary and a malolactic fermentation. This is Ed Sobraja, and Ed was the winemaker at Beringer for a long period of time. and he owned some land in Sonoma. And when he retired from Beringer, he focused on his own namesake. But he really built his reputation at Beringer, and he was just kind of a beast at making amazingly big, bold, award-winning wines. Back in the 1990s, it seemed like every single year, Beringer Private Reserve was at the top of the 100 list, and whether it was the Beringer Private Reserve Cab or Chard or Merlot. But this 94, I remember the 94 Beringer Private Reserve Chardonnay. I think it was voted the #1 wine of the year in 1996. And that was a big, big moment, and probably the last time that California Chardonnays even made the top 10. So this is a really important guy, and this is his estate out in Sonoma. And here's a look at it. His son's starting to take the reins. And that's what we're going to talk about right here. So let's taste it and see what you guys think of Sabraja 2017 Home Ranch Sonoma Dry Creek Chardonnay.
So Ian, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
When I first opened this and just smelled it, because I just smell the wines first, and I had no idea what it was, I would have guessed it was a Sauvignon Blanc. I mean, it just seemed to have a kind of grapefruity quality, and almost grassy. It's kind of changing now, and it tastes a little different. But I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit, because certainly it's the most different. It's a very different nose than the other two.
For sure. And I think the nose of this wine does have kind of a range of different citrus, and it presents itself in a little different way with the composition of the fruits. I think, if someone were to tell me I was going to drink a Chardonnay from Ed Sabraja, I would take a step back and tell you exactly what I thought it was going to taste like. This wine definitely has a little bit of structure. He's a big guy, and he knows how to coax a lot of flavor out of the grapes. And so I really think sometimes the wines kind of look a little bit like the winemakers that make them. He has a full, flavor approach, and he's not going to be known as making a feminine Chardonnay. This is a structured Chardonnay with a lot of chiseled character, and I think he uses a kind of a wide range of ripeness levels in this wine, because I do get a little bit of a slightly underripe tart. I get a little bit of hyper ripe. I get a little bit of baked apple, because the range of apple flavors is quite diverse here. And I really feel this wine structure in the mouth. The use of wood, probably a lot of time with the lees and lee stirring have also helped in kind of the creation of this wine. But when he's making this wine, he's making it with a certain price point in mind. And there's a little bit of efficiencies that are needed to keep that price reasonable. And so there's also, maybe some industrialization, such as, mechanical harvesting, being able to use a tractor to pick rather than laborers, becoming a more and more important thing, especially in vintages as of late. We in California have had such amazing pressure on our workforce, and now these guys that pick fruit are under such demands that they're getting closer to $50 an hour by the time, harvest and overtime and all that stuff is being calculated in. It's becoming a real huge expense to the grape growers. So it's really taking its toll on our ability to keep wine prices sustained. But Ed's reputation allows him to charge a good amount for the wine, but I think he really focuses on value. Otherwise, he'd be buying really expensive single vineyard ranches, and he does make a few of those, by the way. But this is from his own ranch, and he always wanted to kind of pass on a lot of value off of his property in Dry Creek. So I hope you enjoy our Chardonnay number 1, and just keep it in mind as we carry the theme through all 3 wines tonight. Let's check in with Bob and see how he's doing.
Hey, we're doing great, Ian. And it's amazing. I forget. Sometimes you think that risotto really takes forever to cook because it just has that kind of reputation. But as you've been talking, my rice has been absorbing a lot of this chicken stock. And it's always good to taste as you go along. The end result for risotto is that you want it to have just a little bit of an al dente bite to it, as you would with a pasta. So in the last, it's actually been about 17 or so minutes, this rice has absorbed about, I'm going to say 3 cups of chicken stock. And I'm going to add a little more chicken stock now. And then I'm going to start to add some of my beautiful green ingredients. So these are peas that I bought at the farmer's market last week. And by the way, these things are, if you live in California, as I'm guessing most of your guests are, or do live in California, we're just coming into fava bean season, into green garlic season, into leek season, into if there are ramps to be found here, and some of the markets actually import ramps, so you can find some of those, as well as asparagus. Local asparagus is just coming into season. So I've just added so first of all, the risotto is simmering, and that's why the rice is continuing to absorb the stock. But as it simmers, because I've now put the peas in and I'm about to put in the asparagus, it's also going to cook these ingredients just sort of gently. So just enough so that they're fully cooked, but not to the point where they're overcooked like all those vegetables that our mothers fed us back in the 60s and 70s. So I have a lovely bunch of asparagus here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the tops, the beautiful tops, so that I keep them, and you will be able to find those in the risotto. So I'm adding the tops here, and then I'm going to take the rest of the stems and I'm going to cut them very finely so that they cook as well. And there's no need to peel them. As you can see here, I'm cutting them just into very small little rounds. And so even though they still have the peel on them, they'll be very tender. So I'm going to add these and let them simmer away as the rice absorbs the last couple of cups of stock. And
hey, Bob, can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Chris is using the entire asparagus there. Is that okay?
It depends. Here's the thing about, first of all, yes, of course. Because you can't go wrong, even if you have a little bit of woodiness. But this is the end of one of the spears of asparagus that I have. Sometimes the stores cut the very bottom super woody part off, and sometimes they don't. They'll leave it because often asparagus, like at my grocery store down the street, it's sold by the pound, so they want to leave as much of the stalk on as possible so that you're paying more for it. But if I were to bite the top here, so this is the last 3 inches of the spear that I have. The top that's still very tender. A little less tender off the bottom, a little bit woody, but if you're slicing that very finely, it still is not going to be that tough, even if it's woody. If you get to if they were to pull this asparagus spear out of the ground, that very last little bit would be very woody. And if you tried to bite into it, it might be a little overwhelmingly tough and chewy. So, and there is a trick, of course, that I'm sure we've all heard, which is you bend the asparagus spear, and where it snaps is what you use and what you discard. But the truth is, in this world of zero waste that we live in, there's no need to discard that much of the bottom half of the stem. You can peel it if you were cooking the entire spear whole, or, as I've been saying, slice it very finely, and then it kind of breaks up the fibers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to let my risotto absorb a little bit more of this chicken stock as the peas and asparagus cooks. There's one more thing that I'm going to add. I have these beautiful pea tendrils that I bought at the farmer's market last week. This is the first week that I've seen them. These are, if you can see this, gorgeous pea tendrils. And I'm going to put them in as I add the green sauce and everything else. And we're going to do that all together in about 5 minutes from now. So maybe we'll taste the second wine, Ian, and then come back and finish this off. And there's a lot, by the way, I have many tricks up my sleeve for the final round of this risotto.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to go back into the PowerPoint and show just wine number 2, which is maybe new to some of you guys. In fact, I'm going to show you the website of the winery. This is Census Winery. This is a pretty new and kind of a highly hyped brand. Chris Streeter, a really smart guy, grew up with a couple of his buddies up in Sonoma, and they decided to make wine together. As they kind of grew up and life kind of took shape. There's Chris. There's Max, his friend. Can you see it? No, I didn't.
Can't see anything. Blank screen.
Let me try. Maybe I clicked onto the wrong screen. Sorry about that. Here we go. How about that? Got it? There's Chris. This is his buddy Max and Miles. And all three of these guys grew up in the same town, same place. And Max's family owns the Theorio Vineyard, very famous vineyard. Chris is really kind of the sales force and the numbers guy, and really smart on that side. And then Miles is in the winemaking side. So we got a grape grower, winemaker, and kind of a business guy. They've worked with a really strong team of professionals, and they're bringing up the kids to take over the business. So this is Census Winery. And I think it's a really cool story. They do make quite a few different wines from some really famous vineyard sites, and they're getting some really great press. And the wine that we're going to have tonight is our 2018 Russian River Valley. Let's go here. There we go. 2018 Russian River Valley. And I will say that the first wine that we had, 2017, was the vintage. I didn't really play much in the hand of talking about how that vintage was showing itself. Maybe I should have, Barnett. But the 18 vintage is really an optimal vintage in California. At 17, we had some crazy kind of temperature variation. A really hot couple of weeks, and just kind of made some challenging conditions for grape growers to be able to control their quality and the ripeness levels and things like that. But 18 just was like, one of those great vintages where it was really tough not to make good wine, because the vineyards just responded so well, and we had no fire events. We had no really anything to knock down or cause any suspicion of quality. So here's I've already poured my wine number 2. Hopefully you guys have as well. Here's a look at the vineyards. And this is just a super premium appellation, Russian River, a little bit cooler than up in Dry Creek. And a pretty optimal place for all things Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And here's a couple of nice pictures of Chris and his team working in the vineyards. Let's take a look at this wine, and I'm excited to taste this. I got a 6-bottle allocation on this wine, and now we're down to about 3. So if you like it, there's only 3 left. Let's see how it goes. When I smell this wine, it's got a little bit more restraint than the wine number 1. You can really smell really kind of more lavish characteristics inside, but you get a little closer to the glass, not quite as ripe. It's definitely got a deeper sense of fruit, a little more bruised fruit, bruised apple, baked pear. You can smell just a little bit more refined use of wood. That vanilla is really pretty in this wine. What do you think, Barnett?
This one, especially, well, compared with the first one, is much more reticent. So I kind of had to focus a little bit more. The first one was kind of in my face, and this one required a little bit more attention. The subtleties are there. It's not quite as forthcoming yet, and on the palate as well. But I agree with what you're saying. I mean, your nose is very sensitive, and it's impressive. But I agree with what you're saying. It's just harder to get, at least at this moment.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of, I think sometimes some winemakers don't want the wine to be as full blown. It's not always the goal of the winemaker to be big and bold. Sometimes they want the subtleties to kind of allow themselves to kind of take shape. I think here there's an immense amount of restraint and a real focus on kind of a purity, balance, finesse. I would say this is a pretty wine, not a powerful one. And I think that's a compliment to the winemakers. But some people may not like this as much. Some people may be looking for more. Some people may want bigger and bolder, more oaky, more buttery, more creamy. This is really more of a finesse wine, and I think it's very stylish. I do think it's also kind of in a state right now that's a little youthful. I think this wine shows that maybe it needs another year or so in the bottle to be able to achieve a little bit more richness and palate weight. When I taste it though, it tastes pretty damn good, and it got some pretty big scores. Bob, are you ready for us?
Yes, sir. I am.
All right. We'll come back to that in a second, and if anybody has any more questions.
So I'm just taking a look at the risotto here, and in progress. Tasting the rice, which is it just has a tiny little bit of bite left in it, which is fantastic.
Can you show that pan? Can you bring that up to the camera so everybody can take a look at what you're looking at? Wow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drive really fast so I can eat half of that.
So I just tasted the rice, and it just has a tiny bit of bite left. And I've also just double checked the asparagus and the peas, and they've cooked enough so that they're still nice and fresh, but at the same time, they've cooked as much as they need to cook, but you still have all the flavor and some of the texture there. So at this point, I'm going to add my pea tendrils. I actually just took the bowl that I'm going to serve in, and I put it over the chicken stock, and now it's perfectly heated, so that when I go to plate this, it's going to be nice and hot. It's not going to cool this down. So I'm going to add a little bit more stock right now, and I'm actually just going to stick a lid on top of it so that that pea tendrils cook for about a minute here. And now we're going to make this green sauce that I've been talking about. And to approximate the ramps, which of course, first of all, I'm on the wrong coast, and second of all, they're still about a month away. But I'm taking some arugula, and I'm going to use a leek, and I'm just going to use a small part of the bottom section of the leek. And just to double check that it's not too sandy, I'm going to cut it in half, and there's no sand inside here, so that's good. I'm going to just rough chop it. Add this to my little bullet, my ninja bullet, with a little bit of salt. And now I'm going to take a generous amount of olive oil. And because I don't want to use too much olive oil, I'm also going to use a little bit of the chicken stock. Throw that all together. And I'm out of frame here, but you can just trust me that I'm going to blend this up. It's only going to take a second. And here we go. Now we have this lovely green sauce, which is essentially It's just the arugula, the leek, the olive oil, and again, I just used the that chicken stock so that I didn't have to use too much olive oil. You can see here that my pea tendrils have cooked. They're cooked enough. And now I'm adding this green sauce to the pan, and I'm going to stir it in. And as I stir it in, the rice is going to start to absorb it, and it's going to just sort of give them a big bear hug to the rice. So even if the rice isn't totally absorbing it, the rice is all going to be sort of just hugged by this green sauce. Hugged, when I say hugged, I mean every grain of rice, of arborio rice that you have now is going to come with a little bit of the sauce, which is just going to add to its, add another dimension. So if you can see the pan here, Sweets, could you just come and tilt that light a little bit?
It's looking great, man.
Okay, just turn it this way a bit. There you go, less. Okay, perfect. So now here's the money. First of all, I'm gonna do one last thing. A friend of mine just brought me over this afternoon some beautiful spot prawns, which are also a spring ingredient. And these have already been cooked. So they're gorgeous spot prawns, and two of them actually had some roe. And so I don't know if you can see in the bottom here, but there's actually, it's okay, sweet. There's actually a little bit of spot prawn roe. So I'm gonna add these in. I wasn't planning on doing this, but it just so happened that she brought them over. And spot prawns, which are like, think of shrimp and then just think turning up the dial on the sweetness and the succulence of them. And then you end up with spot prawns. And they come from, by the way, if you live in Los Angeles, this is from a wholesaler, a seafood wholesaler who originally, up until the beginning of last year, only sold to restaurants. But what with the pandemic, they have, for I think a minimum order of $150, they will deliver to your house. And it's Luxe, Luxe seafood. Amazing stuff. I've filled my freezer, and right now they have live spot prawns. So they actually deliver them live, which is pretty amazing. You take the tails, the prawn, that's like the shrimp, and then you take the heads, you snap the heads off, and you immediately make yourself a beautiful spot prawn stock, and which you could also use in a risotto, by the way. So now here's the key to making risotto loose and sumptuous, and that is not to allow it to absorb all of the liquid. So I'm going to do the following now. I'm adding one last bit of chicken stock. I'm going to add some butter, a generous amount of butter, not too much. That's, I would say, 2 tablespoons. And I'm going to add a generous amount of Parmesan. And so now we're upping the richness factor. And at the same time, it's about time to season this. So I'm going to start with some salt and some pepper, an amount that I know is less than I'm going to want to add, and I'm going to taste it in a second.
Is there a need for a lipitor before you eat this dish?
No, I mean, what have we added? No, but truthfully, I've added, this is a serving for, this is actually enough for 4.
Yeah.
So that was 3 tablespoons of butter. So less than 1 tablespoon of butter. And, a couple of heaping tablespoons of Parmesan per serving. And that's it, really. It's not really that crazy. But the most important part, and I'm just going to come all the way over here, and I want to show you this because I need you to see this. The most important part is that I haven't allowed the rice to absorb all of the stock. I want to keep this loose and nice and soupy. And the biggest mistake that people make is, and I used to make this mistake myself, is to allow the risotto to absorb all of the stock. And so by the time it gets to the table, and as you're walking to the table, it is still absorbing the stock. So if you allow it to absorb all of the stock and then you walk it to the table, by the time it gets there and you've had a little bit of a conversation about whatever you're talking about, the rice has continued to absorb the stock, and you end up with just like a clump of rice. And I'd rather have my risotto be much more soupy than clumpy. Wow. There's a lot of flavors going on here. And it's the stock, I mean, I'm getting the stock, I'm getting the flavors of the green sauce. There's a richness to it, even though it's not sort of gratuitously rich. I'm getting the freshness and the brightness of the asparagus and the peas and those pea tendrils. It's quite gorgeous. So now we're gonna plate this, and hang on now. I want you to see the plating here. So I'm gonna bring this in. Hello. Okay.
Teresa, are you getting hungry like me?
So here we go. I want you to see that it's still nice and loose. Okay. Can you see that?
Yep.
And you can actually see these gorgeous spot prawns. And now we're going to add a little bit more Parmesan. I'm going to add a sprinkle of my very best sea salt. I'm using Malden sea salt. I have some, these are edible flowers, and I just bought these in my grocery store. When I can, I get them at the farmer's market, but it's not that, it's the end of the week and they wouldn't have lasted. But I'm going to add some lovely flowered petals, which just makes this more spring-like. What do I have here? Some pansy petals. What else do I have? Wow, you just can't go wrong with these beautiful little yellow.
You're killing it.
Flowers. I know, and it's not really that difficult to add some of this beauty to your dish. And then the very last thing I'm going to do is take my very best olive oil, just a little sprinkle over top. Sprinkle, sorry, a little drizzle. And now
get that really close to the camera, Bob. We got to see that. We got to see that. That's gorgeous, man. Yep, I'm hungry.
There we go. And you know what? It seems like a complex dish, but truthfully, we've made this together. There's a few steps and a few ingredients, but I think it's a myth that is perpetuated by Italian grandmothers because they want you to feel that there are secrets that they're going to take with them to their graves, and that inspires more devotion for them, which is of course deserved. But the real truth is that risotto is very simple, and it's just the more flavorful ingredients and the more love for the Italian grandmothers that you put into it, the more delicious it is. Oh, it's truly a flavor bomb, Ian. And the last thing I would say, the last decision you can make about risotto is serve it in small portions. This is actually about twice as much as I would normally serve, because you get in, you get out, you leave a fantastic impression, and then move on to a nice bright salad as a way of finishing it. And no one will ever tire of it. They'll be begging for more, as opposed to feeling like, oh, I can't eat another bite of this.
Right. Well, it looks great. I hope Kate gets a chance to try that.
I'll share some with her.
Kate's slaving away behind the camera.
And by the way, this risotto has never met a Chardonnay it doesn't love.
Awesome. Awesome. Well,
And I'm looking forward to tasting your last one with this. Too.
yeah, let's get to the last wine, because we're kind of climbing this complexity train here. We've gone from something that's really nice and definitely, made by an expert with our first wine. We moved into wine number 2, which is about a $60 bottle, and it's got a lot of subtlety, but from famous vineyards and really a graceful wine. Probably needs a little bit more time in the bottle to get a little bit more plush and round, but I don't think you should expect it to be big and vocal at any point in time. Now we're going to go into our Kongsgaard, and let me just introduce Tom Kongsgaard here and tell you a little bit more about that. So this is the Kongsgaard label here, 2018. Makes about 2,000 cases of wine, which sounds like a lot, but it's really actually pretty small for a brand of his recognition. People know Tom Kongsgaard for the many different wineries that he has been in charge of, including Newton. When Newton was making the famous unfiltered Chardonnay, he was the winemaker, and he left Newton to really kind of get his own thing going on back in the 1990s. And he makes a Chardonnay, by the way, called the Judge, which gets close to $200 a bottle for Chardonnay. And the one that we're trying tonight is kind of Napa 2018. Let's take a look. Robert Parker says that Kongsgaard is searching for the Holy Grail, and that these are the most interesting naturally made wines on the planet Earth. That's pretty high claim from Robert Parker. And the New York Times says Kongsgaard consistently makes the best Chardonnay in California today. So he looks for places to really accentuate his style, which is definitely going for the full throttle approach. It's about taking very high definition fruit that he will pay a lot of money for, and then he'll pass that on to you in his bottle price. But he's not about to try to make value wine here. He's trying to make the best, and so he's paying big money for really defined fruit, very low yielding fruit from very extreme vineyards. Just smell that, Barnett. This is like, baked apple, big time, really ripe. It's pushing, it's on all the petals down. It's got that full vanilla nose, great amount of concentration.
Yeah, when I smelled all 3 wines at the very beginning, just poured them 1, 2, 3. It was obvious which one was the
Sure.
one.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, this has got kind of the top end of what we can achieve here in California with really special vineyards, special handling of the fruit, a little bit more judicious use of a French oak. We're talking about 100% new French oak. We're talking about very defined vineyard sources that wouldn't get buried in that kind of winemaking treatment. It's got, definitely he's using a lot of batonnage to stir the yeast in the barrels. And you can feel that creaminess and that texture. You can smell it too. Lisa, which one does your mom like the best?
We only bought the last one in a bottle, and it's quite.
Oh, okay. The Kongsgaard.
Yeah, she said it. She just said as it opened, the complexity of it's been amazing.
Awesome.
It's lovely.
Chris, I know that those the samples made it to you. Are you able to try the wine yet, or are you going to wait for? I think she's taking some photos.
Hey, Mom, they're asking you a question.
Hi.
I'm sorry.
Did you
I
get
was
to
just
try
going to
the
talk to Lindsay for a second. What was the question?
Did you get to try any of the wines yet?
I did. I liked number 1. I'm not good on fruity, so 3 was But and you're right, it needed a little time. But my son's a winemaker in Sonoma, and so yeah, I'm very familiar with wine. We're a farming family.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Who's your son make wine
He's
for?
Las Jares.
Sorry, which wine?
Las Jares.
Las
Joel
Jares.
Berg. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Very cool. And so that's Lindsay's brother.
All
So
right.
anyway, yeah. I'm sorry if I'm crashing down and all that stuff, but my computer's way down low.
So
Anyway,
cool.
our stuff turned out really great. Our risotto was really terrific.
Awesome.
And I have 3 sous chefs, or 2 sous chefs.
Easy for you to say.
I have 2 helpers, and that makes it nice because generally it's myself. So.
Oh, very cool.
But it was very terrific. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you could do it with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lindsay, how is yours turning out?
Yeah.
Have the first page.
So far so good. I'm at the point where I only have the first page of the recipe, so I'm going to go with what I listened to our chef share with us, and I think I got it. But so far it's just my rice is in, and I just am cooking off the wine, so ready for broth. We're going. So.
Okay, Lindsay, was there a page 2 that I should have had?
The recipe goes past I only saw the first page, but there is a little bit more. It kind of stops at when you put the wine with the rice, but if there's not the rest of it where you're putting the broth and you add the veggies and you add the pesto. But I'm figuring it out. I was listening earlier.
Cool. We'll have to put that disclaimer in. You're going to have to watch this video in order to get the rest of it. Bob, how you doing there?
Honestly, I couldn't be any better, Ian.
All right.
This wine's glorious. Perfect pairing. Great night.
Far out. I personally, I don't always get to drink $100 bottle of wine, and so when I do, it comes with a certain set of expectations. And so you pull something out like this in a special moment, special meal. I do have some customers. I think this is their house wine, but good for them. But this is the experience here. When we get to this $100 level, we're really getting a hyper amount of concentration here, and the flavors are almost beyond obvious. I mean, you can, like Barnett said, you could really smell it when you poured it out of the vial. It's just really unctuous and rich and defined and lavish, and all those wonderful ways of describing something ultra high end. And it checks all those boxes. But super defined, and I think you can even see some people, it's just maybe too much. It's a little too obvious, a little too much in your face, and that might be where you got to kind of go past, where the needle kind of passes over, from something enjoyable to maybe too much information that kind of destroys. So for some people, that this wine would be like the ultimate expression of California ripeness, richness, concentration, and all that, and that might be too much. So there is definitely kind of a moving scale where and not any. There's no one right answer. Anybody could decide which one they prefer, and that's the right answer, the one that you like the best.
Ian,
That's the beauty of wine.
That's right.
Too much is just enough.
That's your style?
Well, for this one, I would say, yeah. I mean, and having tasted a couple of Kisslers and Aubert, and now this, I mean, it's really a wonderful experience.
Sure.
It's hard to imagine as a house wine. I will say that. I don't know that I could drink this every day, but what a fantastic treat. Wow.
Of course you could.
Well, I accept that challenge, and I'll look for the bottles in delivery.
Yeah, no, I've got a couple customers that live pretty nice lifestyles, and this is if they're going to drink Chardonnay, it's going to be Kongsgaard. So, but there are a couple of those luxury brands, and the set, the set of brands gets pretty small at the top, but a lot of amazing fruit is being grown and being pedicured just for brands like this. This is where the growers need to take things, and the market just needs to support it, and then we'll continue to see different vineyards rise to the top of the food chain. But I love exploring wine with you guys. Thank you very much for letting us open these 3 wines. And Bob, I can't thank you enough for making my palate go crazy watching that.
I'm only sorry that you're not here to share this with you, Ian.
Yeah, me too. So Barnett and I and Teresa, we're gonna get in the car and we're gonna see who can get there first. Grab the rest of that.
So where can you buy those
tendrils?
Pea tendrils. So pea tendrils. Where do I have any? I don't have a full tendril left, but pea tendrils are actually it's the green from the pea plant, the pea vine, the pea stalk, like a bean stalk. It's the leaves, and the little tendrils are those little curly things. And that's what grows before the peas, actually, the pea pods grow on the vine. And so grocery stores will never carry things like this, but farmers markets where the farmers are growing these, growing their own vegetables, will decide partially to just cash flow. It's like, oh, I can pick some of this right now and turn it into a cash crop. So they bring it to the farmers market and sell them as pea tendrils. Whereas in a grocery store, all you would ever see would be peas.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a local farmers market, which I highly recommend you go to as often as you can, you'll probably see them, if not in the next week or so. This was the first week I saw them last Sunday, but they'll be coming onto the market at farmers markets in the next couple of weeks.
Great.
And they're delicious. They really.
What would they
They
do?
taste
Which
like
farmers market do you go to? Do you go to the Hollywood farmers market,
Yeah.
or is there another one?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
Hollywood Farmers Market.
best
I
one
haven't
ever.
missed a Sunday market in 30 years.
we
but
haven't
as I-
gone since all of the COVID stuff, but we were every weekend for a long time.
Yeah. So this is the pea tendril, and when you taste it, you can. This is the leaf, but you can actually taste the peas in the leaf.
Right.
The leaf tastes like fresh young peas.
Yeah, they're good. They're good to use in salads and stuff too. They just add
So amazing.
Yeah.
So amazing. That's the beauty of farmers markets, if I may just make a pitch for them, is that you can buy things at farmers markets that never make it to the grocery store, because it's just, they'll pick even green garlic is another perfect example, just about to hit the market again. This season, it's just about to start. So it's garlic before the actual bulb starts. It almost looks like a green onion, and then the bulb starts to grow and grow. And every week that you go to the farmer's market, the green garlic has a slightly larger bulb, but it's very mild. It's like a green onion meets garlic, but super delicious and worth seeking out.
We are going to probably run into you at the farmers market in Hollywood tomorrow. My wife loves the Harry's berries.
Mm-hmm.
One of our biggest, that's like a line item in our monthly expense account. They're so expensive, but they're already in the farmers markets, and they're usually not there until April. I'm not sure what that says about this growing season, but they're early. And so they have a variety of strawberry that's very, very special and very fragile. So,
which is, yeah. And Ian, that's exactly why you get things at farmers markets, or that's one of the reasons you get things at farmers markets you don't get elsewhere, because they don't transport very well, but they can bring them straight to the market and not have to worry about, the depots and all, and the tractor trailers and all that kind of stuff.
Cool. Is there any other like amazing produce just hitting the market? I mean, it's like kind of like that season. Things are just starting to wake up right now, right?
Sure. Well, every season there's something. I mean, we're coming out of the winter season, so there was celeriac and turnips and things like that. We're moving into the spring season. For us in California, it's 2/3 of the way through February, and we're getting what the East Coast gets in April and May. But favas, green garlic, peas, pea tendrils, all the young green things are about to hit the market, which is exactly why I made this risotto. It's not that you can get them last week or maybe next week, but the ingredients that you'll use in this, but within the next few weeks, you will see them at the farmers markets. And so I wanted to imprint this recipe on your mind so that when you see these ingredients at the market, you'll go, oh, I remember that guy Bob Blumer with the funny bedhead and Ian and his wines, and this would be a great thing to make. And of course you can make it. And I promise you, if you have the recipe, which Ian's going to email you, so you don't need to buy anything else, yours will taste as delicious as what I just ate, because there's no, nothing, no secrets. I've shared all the secrets that exist.
Thanks, Bob. That was great. I'm starving now, so I'm going to go make mine. And I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight. We've got a couple of fun things to just show you as quickly as I can here about our future Zoom into Wine programs as they continue to take shape. Every day we're working, making progress on the future, and we're starting to post our April events. As I said earlier, the Rhone Warriors almost sold out. Sancerre's coming. My tasting of Brunello de Montalcino with Vince Ferragamo is coming down the pipe. We've got Matt Dees, great winemaker from Santa Barbara, top guy, super top end stuff. And this is the Mel Road and the Kimsey Ranch are just like, they're absurd how good those wines are. They're at the very, very top of the food chain in Santa Barbara. We're doing a kosher wine event on Saturday, the 13th of March. We're doing, we've got the Napa Valley Vintners, not yet visible in here, but we've got the Napa Valley Vintners tour coming in March. And we're gonna have 4 dates because they've got so many great producers there. And we're, I get high compliments from them saying that we are doing a good job bringing the wines to the LA population. So they're giving us 4 nights. It's 4 nights with 7 winemakers per Zoom. So be on the lookout. We're not going to do it 4 in a row. We're going to do 2 per week for 2 weeks. And that's how we're going to spread that out. And it's going to be a lot of fun in March. So keep an eye on our calendar, because some really cool topicality, like a whole session on Mencia from Bursco in Spain. Really cool grape variety that I love in Spain. We're going to be going up to the Santa Clara Wine Valley, 3 winemakers for a little trip, like it's called a virtual visit. And we're going to pretend like we're in my car and we're going to be driving from winery to winery. And we're going to kind of have that type of an experience. And this kind of light bulb kind of came on. So I'm going to do it also for Paso. So we've got 2 little virtual visits in March and April, Paso Robles and Santa Clara. So that's what we've got coming down the pipe. And the other big news is that last week we launched or relaunched learnaboutwine.com. And there's a lot happening there as we started with learnaboutwine.com in 1995, and we kind of set it aside in 2016 so that we could turn it into a digital wine education source. And Zoom has let us do that. So the classes are starting to return, and we're talking to different educators around the world about bringing some wine classes. So be on the lookout for all of that. And Bob, again, I want to thank you for being our special guest tonight and making us all a little more hungry.
Thank you, Bob.
Always a pleasure. And Ian, I think we've talked about, I don't know that we've locked it in, but doing another evening revolving around the fava bean crostinis that were served up at Campanile. So
Yes.
your friends should stay tuned to that, because that'll be a lot of fun.
Lock that in with the date that we're talking about. I just got to clear it with the winery, and we'll be there.
Always looking forward to the next time, Ian.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you so much, and thank your whole household for contributing to our Sure.
Hang on. Kate's coming to take a bow. Hang on one second.
Good job, Kate. Kate was our. Thank you, Kate.
At the market.
Wonderful to see you. Thank you, sweetheart. You guys have a great night.
All right.
I'll be sending
Thank you.
everybody a little gift, a virtual gift bag with some special deals on the Chardonnays tonight if you want to take advantage of that.
Ian, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Pleasure.